Okay, the wait is over. So let's quickly start. So, good evening to each one of you present here. And it is indeed our pleasure to invite you guys for a lovely, wonderful session. And yes, it is Ashika's honor that Sunil ji has agreed to become a part of this session, to an interactive session. uh, I think it is definitely honor to each one of us that Sunil sir has accepted our invitation and give us such an important time of his busy schedule to address each one of you and try and answer your queries. So before we start, some simple rules of the presentation today. Um, we'll have a quick 20 odd minutes session from Sunil sir. He will be discussing about macroeconomics, what is driving force in the Indian economy. My sincere request to each one of you is please be on mute and please refrain from talking anything particular about any particular sector or any particular stock recommendations. I think we will just stick to the macro and general economics from the educational perspective. That is what the today's topic is. So before I hand it over to Sunil sir, let me just quickly introduce Sunil sir to us. Uh, Sunil sir is the Chief Business Officer with the oldest exchange of India, which is the Bombay Stock Exchange. Uh, he's the veteran with 27 years of experience. I think in financial world there will be no one who would not be knowing him. He has worked in different profiles, right from banking, treasury, from broking industry, from the prop trading perspective, from HFT trading perspective. I think there is no stone which he has not turned around in his 27 years of career. I think he has worked with ICICI Bank. Um, uh, BSE is definitely working with NSDL. So he comes with a lot of experience, guys. This is our time, and let's try to maximize. Let's make notes. Let's try to understand what best we can. And let me hand it over to Sunil ji. Sunil ji, thank you for joining in. And over to you, sir, please.
Thanks, Rahul, for the warm introduction. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, loud and clear, sir.
Yeah. Uh, Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Ashika team, for inviting me for today's talk and more interactive session. That's the way I try to make it my sessions. Uh, but given the topic which I was given, but I'll give you a quick background from where I come in. I already Rahul has covered quite a lot of things, but holding the position at exchange is always a more of a semi-regulatory position, and we have to be very, very careful when we talk about anything about the macroeconomics and also about anything what we talk. So any kind of a view what we express over here is not about the recommendation what we make. And let me also make it very clear here: we as employees of the exchange are not allowed to invest into the stocks directly. We are allowed to invest only into the mutual funds or ETFs. That is the way regulatory uh, kind of a overhang what we work with. Uh, Given the background, what I tried to say, I'll try to give you more about the real life economy and what is happening, not even the macroeconomic world on the Indian market. You'll get to read a lot of data, uh, and also I'll try to make it हिंदी एंड इंग्लिश. मेरी हिंदी भाषा भी ठीक है, तो कई लोग आपके जो निवेशक होंगे वो हिंदी में सुनना चाहेंगे, तो we'll try to mix around and so that make it much more lucid in a conversation and try to understand why we are talking about the India story is just the unfolding at this stage. Given that background, uh, I would like to start my stuff from the angle of the fastest growing economy in last couple of years. So India has been the fastest growing economy in terms of the GDP growth. What we are seeing right now, though the base compared to the largest economy will be small, but still the pace of growth becomes very, very important. From 2014-15 onwards is now almost like a decade back. जब हम लोग की economy $1.3 trillion, so we'll be talking dollars more from the angle of a, because globally we become benchmark. Where do we stand vis-a-vis the other global economies? So from 2014-15 onwards, जब हम लोग की economy 1.3 trillion dollars थी, and last year 2024-25 we were more than $4 trillion economy, and the pace of the growth what we are envisaging. Uh, so in last 10 years, our economy tripled basically. 10 साल में हमारी economy triple हुई, almost more than triple, almost like say in that range, 1.3 to $4 trillion, and we envisage to become $7.3 trillion. These are statistics numbers which are taken by the lot of projections which have come by the different renowned economic firms. So by 2030, we envisage to become third largest economy with a $7.3 trillion kind of. So what does that mean actually? आप सोचो जो इकोनॉमी की साइज थी हमारी, जो इतना मार्केट कैप आपका बना था आज तक के, in terms of the overall size of the market, what you're looking at it is going to be doubling in that size of the market in terms of the overall growth on the multiple sectors whenever your economy expands at that pace. And the pace of the growth is happening because of multiple factors. It is based on the strong domestic demand and lot of economic reforms which have happened, lot of transformative policy framework which has been done by the Indian government at this stage. So currently, our economy largely driven by GDP is driven by the domestic demand and private consumption, and a lot of government spending which keeps on happening on the multiple sectors. Infrastructure has been improving. You must be seeing the roads, railways, and the multiple infrastructure spending done by the government at this stage, and partly by exports. But very importantly, why people look up to the Indian economy when we talk. So today also being an exchange, one good part is you keep on getting a lot of foreign investors coming onto you and understand the Indian markets, not only from the stock market perspective, but economic perspective, what is happening onto the Indian economy. And stock markets being the barometer of any kind of economy anywhere in the world, that's why they first come to the stock markets and the people around there to just to understand what is happening on the capital markets. So just to give you some idea about कि जो भारत का स्टॉक मार्केट द प्री कोविड एंड पोस्ट कोविड में क्या क्या अंतर आया है, बहुत लोगों को नंबर्स मालूम नहीं होंगे यहाँ पे जो आज आए हुए हैं। आप लोग में से कई लोग नए इन्वेस्टर्स होंगे, कई लोग ऑलरेडी स्टैब्लिश्ड इन्वेस्टर्स होंगे, बट जस्ट आपको एक थोड़ा सा डेटा पॉइंट देता हूँ मैं। जो प्री कोविड में नंबर ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स इन इंडिया फ्रॉम 1990 ऑनवर्ड, जब इंडियन स्टॉक मार्केट खुलना चालू हुआ था, ओपन अप होना चालू हुआ था, फ्रॉम दैट टाइम टिल 2020, 30 years it took to get number of investors to participate in market was 3.8 crores. So it took 30 years to get 3.8 crores investors to come into the capital market and participate. And in last 5 years, post-COVID, that 3.8 crores has become 12 crores. So that means three times growth which has happened in the number of new investors coming into capital markets to participate in the Indian growth story. So there is a real shift which is happening in terms of a financialization of savings, moving from pure fixed deposit instruments to the much more capital formation which is happening to the stock markets. And why that is happening is very, very important for everyone to understand. The median age of the Indian population is 28 years. जब हम लोग बोलते हैं demographic advantage, what is the demographic means here is जो age of the population in India is very young. You go to any kind of country anywhere, if you all have traveled, I do keep on traveling. Generally, you will find that people above 45, 50 years, slightly old age population. Including, I guess, say that even Rahul, who's sitting in front of me on the screen, looks much more younger than me. So the average age is much more younger of the Indian population is 28 years. So what does that mean? So you got a consuming population which is going to be lasting long, and their consumption patterns are going to be much more long-term sustainable. Where we are seeing the India already becoming the largest populous country. Even China was larger than us in the past. After their one-child policy, they have got declining age, declining population right now. That also is fueling the concerns for them in terms of the growth story which can happen for the next decade. So sometimes people used to say large population is always a challenge, but for India, large population within that, the age of population being younger has become the big selling point, big driver of the growth which is happening at this stage. Where does the growth come from? If you got a proper education happening in India, proper skills being imparted, proper healthcare system, those being there. And today only I was hearing one of the learned fund manager talking about that India having the large English speaking population gives a lot of big advantage in terms of expanding globally. if you are seeing that the GCC, Global Capability Centers, setting up in India, more than 15,000 global capability centers, you name the global firm, either it's a manufacturing firm, outsource their automation processes in terms of software services over here, or large global banks setting up their all their mid office to back offices out here in India, including all global exchanges, stock exchanges like London Stock Exchange, or like you talk about the any global exchange, CME, everybody has got a big outsourced office over here in India because of the our technology prowess in terms of the any kind of automation which they can do. Second is about the English speaking skills which are there. Third is the cost advantage in terms of a labor which is there. So there's a lot of demographic advantage, not only in terms of age, but also in terms of because of our language skills, which have been the biggest advantage to us. Some other statistics which are relevant for you, just to see that why we are growing at a pace, what we are growing. India produces every year around 1.5 million engineers. Okay, so you might be thinking engineers now become more commoditized in terms of the uh, go-to kind of a degree. But within that, let's assume even 1 lakh engineers are good engineers to go out. These get the landed jobs with the all these kind of GCCs. What I'm talking about it. If you are from any kind of a tier one kind of a city, either from large metros like Bangalore or Hyderabad or uh, uh, Chennai or Mumbai or Gurugram or like in Delhi in that case, or even Kolkata, you are finding all kind of GCs setting up their shops out there and also expanding to the tier three and tier two cities right now. So there's a big shift in terms of the overall pattern of the way driving of the service sector is happening. Earlier, it used to be only software services which were there, which was being done by all the large software firms out here from India. But of late, what we found was all the big firms globally found this as a second home for them for setting up their capability centers. So earlier, only the voice-based call center job used to happen in India, but now a lot of tech, high tech based skilled jobs are happening out of the India. So these are some of the things which uh, definitely have been driving the services sector of the business. Though our economy, unlike the other global economies, is based on multiple pillars. If you go and compare yourself with some of the countries like Australia or Canada or these kind of economies, they are dependent on, like Australia is today dependent on largely onto the minerals and the metals in that sense. So similarly, Canada is dependent on that kind of a sectoral kind of a tilt towards their economy. But India is very diverse economy in that sense vis-a-vis the other global economies. And that gives the edge particularly to the India as a destination for a lot of global allocation of capital as and when we grow in the economy. So while you talked about the first is the GDP growth, which is happening right now in the Indian economy right now. Second is a demographic profile, which is very, very important part of the piece of puzzle what the growth is happening. Third is rise in urbanization. So what you are seeing is like say with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of creating 100 smart cities, because one thing is very very clear. What we are finding is our metros are becoming difficult to expand in terms of the infrastructure. What can be created? There have to be many many more smart cities which have to be created. Twin cities have to be created. You start looking at the how the metros are expanded global at India. India has got Mumbai has got Navi Mumbai, uh, Delhi has got so many, and the NCR region as a outside cities. If you go on to some smaller towns like Raipur, they have got a Naya Raipur, Ahmedabad at Gandhinagar, in that case, a smart city. So these are the kind of things what now focused approach is happening by uh, each of the state governments to create a lot of smart cities outside that, because the urbanization is going to further increase as we become more and more a mature economy, where a lot of people are going to get out from the villages and come to the cities for the job and employment as the population increases in that case. So in 2023, some statistics I was looking at, some 35% of India's population has started living in the urban areas. So urban area is again the definition what you want to define, but it is going to be rise to around 47% by 2050. So you can think about the kind of urban housing demand which will happen, because of the kind of size of population what we're talking about. 12% today out of 1.4 crores or 140 crores population becomes something like, say, 28 crores in that case. So that is the kind of stuff what we are talking about, which can happen in terms of growth, which can happen. 14%, I'm talking about the growth, which can happen, 13-14% and growth, which can happen, even at the certain size. So when the urbanization happens, housing demand increases. Housing demand increases means your cement, your steel, your further kind of consumption items keep on increasing when urbanization keeps on improving. Our middle class growth, which is very, very important. A lot of people are coming out of the poverty line and going towards the middle class right now. That side is going to grow much more faster, and that's where the consumption starts improving further in that case. It's going to improve their wages in that sense, better education facilities, better healthcare facilities, living standards, further increases the consumption of your consumer durables to every kind of item. So expanding middle class is one of the important main theory item what we are looking at it. So currently, uh, from the numbers what we are talking about it is going to be by 2030, the projection is going to go to the 46% of the population will move towards the middle class growth story. And by 2047, when we are talking about it, India is going to become a developed India. That's what is the vision of the our Prime Minister. We are expecting us more than 60% of population will be falling in the middle class income category. That's where the projection stands at this stage. So we already talked about the rising consumption, rising demand, which is going to happen. And well, while this tries to happen, one of the important factors which government is cognizant of the fact, our inflation. Inflation remaining under control is one of the important agenda of the monetary policy which happens currently. And by the control of the fiscal policy, you try to maintain your expenditure. So on the monetary policy side, where the RBI plays very important part of the role, they try to control the inflation. And last couple of years, what we saw, our interest rates have been much more stable. Interest rates have been coming down vis-a-vis the global country, which are major economies, where interest rates have been rising substantially over a period of time. Our interest rate differential between the domestic and the global economy has been narrowing down at a 10-year GSEC rate of 6.53%, and vis-a-vis what we see a 10-year GSEC on the US 10-year yield, our spreads have narrowed when spreads used to be as good as a 5%. Now is less than the 2.5%. That also shows that your strength in the overall economy, overall economic macroeconomic fundamentals, which is also being driven by the much more optimization which is happening on your fiscal side of the story. So the government's policies have been very, very consistent. We as a country have not been over leveraged on the debt side till now. Debt to GDP ratio has been always under the control at in the Indian economy. That gives a lot of comfort to a lot of global investors, not only global investors, even to the domestic fund managers. This kind of a controlled debt to GDP ratio always gives a fiscal control, always gives a lot of comfort to the whenever allocation of capital happens to the Indian capital markets. So there is a real story which is happening at the ground level, which is giving a lot of comfort for the long-term investments which come to the India, and that's where the lot of new startup ecosystem has been coming up in India in the past couple of years. So what we have seen the startups, because some of you might be entrepreneurs, some might be aspiring to become entrepreneurs, we keep on seeing a lot of listings happening on the exchanges. Today also I was involved in doing a bell ringing ceremony of the capillary technologies which got listed today at BSE, which is on the main board listing. Again, those startups were started somewhere in 2008, and last 15 years they created a huge amount of a capital for the economy, and they became the first SaaS company to get it listed onto the domestic markets. And just to give you a quick background, was they were the card loyalty company which got it listed. So there is a real aspirational young population which wants to make a mark not only domestically, they want to make a mark globally in terms of getting recognized in terms of the efforts, what the kind of global company which are getting created. That is the way we are seeing the change in India right now. So just to give you some statistics onto that, in 2014, there were only 400 registered startups in India. That number has gone to 1,57,000 in 2024. So government is really promoting the startup ecosystem where stock exchanges like us play a very, very vital role in terms of a capital creation of that. So in a decade, there's more than 400x increase with the new startups coming and getting registered in India. And earlier 2016 only, when you used to find that registered startups were only in some 120 districts. Now that in 2024, what we saw is more than 750 plus districts startups have got registered under the startup ecosystem. So tier 2, tier 3 cities are playing very, very important role, not only for terms of the consumption side, but also for capital creation side. The number of unicorns, so just for the definition of unicorn, सबके लिए मतलब यूनिकॉर्न हम बोलते हैं जो $1 billion कंपनी हो गई हो, $1 billion यानी कि आज के दिन में आज तो करीब 9,000 करोड़ रुपए हो गए, given the dollar has appreciated against rupee. So in that kind of size of companies have gone from 8 कंपनी थी 2016 में सिर्फ जो यूनिकॉर्न थी, आज 2024 में 118 कंपनी हो गई हैं. That is the kind of size we are talking about. And diverse sectors, education technology, fintech, health, logistics, you're finding the startups in the all the kind of a economy which is there. And this startup funding, just to give you some sense about that, $8 billion was the startup funding which was happening in 2016. That $8 billion उस समय के हिसाब से मान लो कि 50,000 करोड़ के आसपास का होगा फंडिंग उसके में. That has gone up to $115 billion. So that is what we're talking about, almost like say 1,10,000 करोड़ के आसपास का फंडिंग मिला हुआ है. So this is kind of a stuff which is happening in terms of money which is coming in. Job creation happens because of startups. More than 17 lakh jobs got created because of these kind of startups which are happening. So there is a real change what we are observing in terms of the overall economy. Maybe some of you guys who are first time investors or like already established investors, you might be looking at market with the one kind of eye. But when you talk to the global and the domestic investors, what we always see is like say the real shift pattern which gets created. While I try to give you the numbers onto the stock market, so I'll give you some another interesting perspective on the who are the people who are coming to stock market now. उनकी age क्या है? And are they the somebody who is going to remain in the market for a long time? That is the statistics very very interesting. जो आप लोग को मालूम होगा तो आप लोग को ज़्यादा मजा आएगा सुन के. ये जो आज के दिन में मैंने आपको बताया कि 2020 से लेकर 2025 तक के 8 करोड़ नए इन्वेस्टर्स आए हैं मार्केट्स में इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए. ये 8 करोड़ न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स की एज क्या है? हर महीने आज के दिन में 20 लाख नए इन्वेस्टर्स रजिस्टर हो रहे हैं स्टॉक मार्केट में. ये 20 लाख नए इन्वेस्टर्स की एज ऑफ पॉपुलेशन, जो 20 से 30 साल वाली उम्र वाले बच्चे तो नहीं बोलना चाहिए, यंग पॉपुलेशन बोलना चाहिए मुझे. सो द पॉपुलेशन विच इज इन द एज ऑफ 20 to 30 years फॉर्म्स 25% ऑफ द न्यू इन्वेस्टर बेस. क्योंकि लोग 23-24 साल में कमाना शुरू करते हैं या 22 साल के ग्रेजुएशन डिग्री और पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन डिग्री 23-24 में शुरू करते हैं. Earlier in our kind of a investment cycle, only after 40 years we used to start investing into markets, because पहले रोटी कपड़ा और मकान, that used to be the story much more. हमारे माँ बाप ने तो रोटी कपड़ा कर दिया था, कई लोगों के पास मकान था, कई लोगों के पास मकान नहीं था. That used to be first priority, and that used to be the way we used to invest in the markets for 40. But आज के दिन में 20 और 30 साल के एज वाले 25% ऑफ न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स आ रहे हैं. Between the age of 30 and 40 years, 50% of the investors in that age bracket. So that means 50 plus 25 are 75% are below the age of 40 years. And below 20 years population is around 3 to 4% of population. So that means their parents are investing for them while they are in college or in the school days. So almost like say 80% of the population who's coming new out of that 20 lakh new investors coming in, that means 16 lakh new investors are very, very young in population. And between 40 to 50 years kind of age are around 10-12% of population, and above that is remaining one. So this is very, very important for everyone to understand. The people who are coming into the markets are not here for short haul. They are going to remain here for the long haul. They have got much more risk taking ability to allocate capital towards market. That is what is sustaining the overall growth of the market still now. Some of the important other statistics I'm sure everyone keeps on hearing or reading in the market, 29 से 28 से 29 हजार करोड़ रुपए का every month systematic investment plan के through capital is coming to the markets. And out of that, 88 to 90% is managed by the BSE alone because of Star mutual fund platform, what we have got as a part of the overall uh, uh, asset management companies हमने link भी किया हुआ है. So very interesting part is कि this one is a systematic investment plan money which is coming in, and over a period of time, government has been liberalizing in terms of our NPS, National Pension Scheme, जो हमारा आज में as a private sector employee also we can invest through the NPS. That capital also start coming into the capital markets. Part of the other insurance company money has been insurance money has been coming into the markets. So you've got a very, very strong domestic flow of capital which has been coming to capital markets right now, irrespective of whatever flows which go out from the foreign portfolio investors. Domestic flow has been very, very strong, sustaining any kind of a volatility in the markets. And first time in the history of the Indian capital markets, the domestic holdings of the Indian capital market has become larger than the foreign portfolio holding right now. So that means whenever they want to come back and buy the Indian equities, definitely they'll get at a price if there is no further selling from the domestic equities. But very important, the price of the market is a function of the profitability in the market, profitability of the companies which are you are investing through either through mutual funds or through the index investing. So from the angle of the investment cycle, what we saw, one is the GDP, second is we talked about demographic population, third we talked about the services sector, which has been growing because of the GCC English speaking population. Then we talked about the capital markets, why capital formation is happening because of a young demographic population. And also we touched base upon the urbanization theme which is happening because of the smart city which is happening. Population is moving towards the urban sectors now, and further consumption theme is start increasing. And also aspiration to become a third largest economy which will happen for India because of growth what we are continuing. So एक very important basic macro economic हम जो पैरामीटर बोलते हैं, हम बोलते हैं जीडीपी ग्रोथ हो गया, हमारे 7% का जीडीपी ग्रोथ है. तो कई लोग कंफ्यूज हैं ये जीडीपी ग्रोथ, रियल जीडीपी ग्रोथ, नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ क्या होता है ये. तो आप नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ में क्या करते हो, आप ऐड करते हो सिंपल इन्फ्लेशन को ऐड कर देते हो उठा के. तो 7%, 3.5, 4% इन्फ्लेशन ला लो, 11% का तो आपका बेसिक नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ हो जाता है. जब आपका 10 से 11% का नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ है आपका, सो टिपिकली एलोकेटिंग 3-4% का उस पर रिस्क प्रीमियम लगा लो आप इक्विटीज के लिए, तो 14 से 15% के आसपास आपका मोटा मोटा रिटर्न बैठता है मार्केट में. अगर कई लोग सोच के आते हैं कि यार कैपिटल मार्केट्स में हमारे को 25% रिटर्न मिलेगा, तो आई थिंक दे आर इन द रॉन्ग बिजनेस दे आर कमिंग इन. If somebody can give you 25 return consistently on year on the index or anything, I think that's something which is very, very difficult to give. So have a reasonable expectation in the market in terms of returns, what you can expect. And one of the basic parameter people look at GDP growth. So already gave you about the GDP growth. We are on every forum, we are talking about 7% GDP growth as a base minimum to grow at this level, and plus the 3-4% का inflation. तो ये 11% and आप उस पर 2-3% का risk premium लगा लो. So that is the way most of the macro guys trade the markets or invest in the market. So that's where the whole point I wanted to make is, given the story what we're building in, अभी अपन ने बात किया कि इतना फास्ट क्यों ग्रो हो रहा है अपने, इतने नंबर ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स क्यों आ रहे हैं, हमारी यंग डेमोग्राफिक पॉपुलेशन. बट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट हैज बीन द अवर टेक्नोलॉजी स्टैक. हम टेक्नोलॉजी स्टैक जब वर्ड यूज करते हैं ना, उसका मतलब ये है कि जो अपना डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है ना, इज वेरी वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग. बिकॉज when we travel globally, what we realize is our UPI payment system. हमको realize भी नहीं होता है कि all of us don't carry wallets these days. None of us carry the wallets these days. We always depend on the mobile phones now. Because हमको मालूम है कि आज के दिन में अगर सब्जी भी मुझे लेने आना है, उसको भी मैं अपने QR कोड के थ्रू, जीपे के थ्रू या मल्टीपल पेमेंट वॉलेट्स के थ्रू मैं पे कर सकता हूँ. And when you travel globally, still we get the coins over there. I'm talking about US also. I still get the coins there when I travel there quite often. आई फील वेरी सैड अबाउट दैट, वो कॉइन्स को कैरी कौन करेगा? एंड वहाँ पे करेंसी स्टिल डॉलर कैरी करके घूमना पड़ता है हमको। सो अपने यहाँ पे इंडिया में जो करेंसी का मूवमेंट है ना, वो कोई बिलीव ही नहीं कर रहा है आजकल। पहले क्या होता कि लोग आपका यूपीआई के थ्रू पेमेंट एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना चाहते थे, आजकल तो सबने कंपलसरी एक्सेप्ट करना चालू कर दिया है। मतलब कई बार बोलने की बात है तो शादियों में देखा है कि लोगों ने आजकल जो पैसे घुमाते हैं वो उसके उसके पीछे भी लोग ने क्यूआर कोड से पेमेंट करना चालू कर दिया है। इंक्लूडिंग आपका आज के दिन में सब्जी वाले से लेकर मोची से लेकर एवरीबडी इज एक्सेप्टिंग योर करेंसी थ्रू द डिजिटल मोड। सो व्हाट डज दैट मीन? द मनी विच वॉज लाइंग समवेयर बिलो योर बेड्स, कोई वॉलेट में पड़ा हुआ था, किसी के थैले में पड़ा हुआ था, दैट मनी हैज कम बैक टू द इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम विच इज रोलिंग वेरी फास्ट because of our technology stack. What you see, none of us realize that whenever you want to transfer money while we are trying to invest into the markets, it happens in seconds. We don't have to wait for that. अभी पेमेंट ट्रांसफर किया है तो यार कल मैं जाके इन्वेस्टमेंट कर पाऊंगा. See the speed of growth what we are talking about in the Indian markets. पहले हम लोग स्टॉक मार्केट में ब्रोकिंग अकाउंट खोलते थे तो टू टू टेक कपल ऑफ वीक्स, फिजिकल फॉर्म जाता था, फिजिकल फॉर्म साइन करोगे, सिग्नेचर मिसमैच होगा, बैंक में जाएगा, उसके बाद चेक में मिसमैच होगा, देयर आर एन नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स. योर आधार बेस्ड enablement of all kind of stuff which is happening is something which is unimaginable for all of us. So when I say digital public infrastructure, Aadhaar has become such an important thing. While you go to airports, आज के दिन में आपको कहते हैं ना, स्कैन भी नहीं करना पड़ता है कहीं पे जाके, सिर्फ चेहरा देखते, चेहरे के बेसिस पे आप लोग की एंट्री हो जाती है. सो थिंक अबाउट इट, योर वन आधार यूनिफाइड payment, Aadhaar becoming unified number for you anywhere when you travel within the India, which has got linked with your bank account, with your income tax account, with your opening a broking account. It's such a strong technology public infrastructure which has been created, which is helping a lot of fintech startups to build their all the kind of application what they're bringing in to the Indian market. So while we talk about and we travel globally at this stage, a lot of companies tell us हमारी कंट्री में ये हो रहा है, आप लोग क्या वहाँ पे इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं? तो वी से बॉस, द सेम थिंग इज अवेलेबल एट zilch of cost at in India, and they want to replicate our learnings into the global markets. That's what we see. And coming back to the even stock markets, when I travel overseas and talk about the kind of applications which our Indian ecosystem has built around the all kind of trading systems in India has been really commendable. So we are growing at a much more faster pace. What is envisaged? Uh, Forget about the what we see the largest companies getting listed out there and the kind of valuation what they derive. But those are handful of companies which are there currently. But Indian ecosystem, I already mentioned about like say BSE being the world's largest stock exchange in terms of number of companies listed. We got more than 5,500 companies listed onto the BSE right now. So we've got a much more story to build on to India. Think about it. जो आपने अभी तक के लास्ट 30 साल में इंडिया की इकोनॉमी में पैसा देखा है, वो नेक्स्ट डिकेड में आप देखोगे दैट काइंड ऑफ ग्रोथ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इट. 30 साल में जो ग्रो हुआ इकोनॉमी वो 10 साल में ग्रो होगा, बिकॉज योर बेस हैज बिकम दैट यू आर गोइंग टू ग्रो एट अ 7% मिनिमम एंड 3-4% इन्फ्लेशन. तो 11% में तो आपका ग्रोथ वैसे ही होने वाला है. एंड आप जो डबलिंग ऑफ प्रिंसिपल लगाते हो, जो सिंपल कंपाउंडिंग का प्रिंसिपल लगाते हो, 72 आर का प्रिंसिपल लगाते हो एट ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ 10%, यू आर गोइंग टू डबल. So at around market cap of $5.4 trillion right now, अपना करीब 5.5 5.5 ट्रिलियन डॉलर के आसपास का मार्केट कैप है. तो $10 ट्रिलियन तो आप वैसे ही हो जाओगे एट 10-11% काइंड ऑफ नॉर्मल जीडीपी ग्रोथ पे. सो मोटा मोटा आप देखो ना कि काइंड ऑफ इकोनॉमी विच इज एक्सपांडिंग एट दिस स्टेज बिकॉज योर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज सो स्ट्रॉन्ग नाउ इन टर्म्स ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट बैंकिंग सिस्टम has been very conservative. Our banking system is clean. They can expand at much more faster pace with their grown and with the financialization of savings which is happening on the capital markets and multiple savings get growth. It is going to keep on growing. Forget about this kind of a 1 year blip and 2 year blip. There's a part of any kind of when the markets grow fast, they have to consolidate and then go to the next level of growth. That is the way we look at it. So I think one way, quite enough, I believe, Rahul. I'm sure the people who are listening will have some questions to ask.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
Maybe
I
you have
think
got something to ask and add here. That would be really nice for the all the audience who's hearing us right now, to make it much more interesting for them.
आई थिंक सुनील जी परफेक्टली वेल सेड। आपने जिस हिसाब से आर्टिकुलेट किया, जिस हिसाब से आपने सारे डेटा प्रेजेंट किए, आई थिंक माय बिलीफ इन इंडियन इकोनॉमी हैज ग्रोन स्ट्रोंगर नाउ। आई स्ट्रांगली बिलीव, आई वाज ऑलवेज अ बिलीवर ऑफ इन इंडियन स्टॉक इकोनॉमी एंड आई कंटिन्यू टू बिलीव दिस नाउ। आपने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज टेक्नोलॉजी पे बोली। व्हेन यू मेंशनड अबाउट अ क्यूआर कोड एट नॉर्मल सब्जी वाला के यहाँ पे, देयर आर टू मोर थिंग्स टू सी सर। जब उसके पास क्यूआर कोड है तो उसके साथ उसके पास इंटरनेट भी है, और एट द सेम टाइम इंटरनेट के साथ उसके पास बैंक अकाउंट भी है।
Yeah,
सो वी आर नॉट ओनली जस्ट लुकिंग फ्रॉम द एंगल के उसके पास क्यूआर कोड है, बट एट द सेम टाइम क्योंकि वो क्यूआर कोड है तो उसके पास बैंक अकाउंट है, और वो क्यूआर कोड को चलाने के लिए उसके पास इंटरनेट भी है। सो दैट इज द लेवल ऑफ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हैज हैपेंड ऑन द टेक्नोलॉजी फ्रंट। आई थिंक वेरी वेल पॉइंट आपने निकाला। सर, लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैव ऑलरेडी कम टू अस।
yeah,
I'll try to select a few of those. Sir,
yeah,
first of all, people would like to understand from volatility perspective. We have, you mentioned about 16 lakh demat accounts opening age of below 40, and 25% almost in the age of 20 to 30. So people are very worried about the volatility perspective. So can you throw some light on how they manage their volatility, and what should be they doing during this volatile period?
yeah. So very importantly, whenever they are, I'll give you a quick background. To I come from the your side of background. While before joining the exchange, I joined almost 2.5 years back. Now I personally invest only through the mutual funds and the ETFs, which I'm allowed to invest. I'm not allowed to
Correct.
invest into direct stocks. And also to give a more sense about it. So one of the important things is about when you talk about volatility, is the leverage is one of the first important words I keep on asking everyone when they invest. I have managed a wealth management firm way to wealth in my career. So definitely I understand the behavior of the investors when they invest in the market. And you have to always choose the product based on the your risk appetite. You don't have to choose the product based on the return potential. First, rather than the return, first thing is the risk you have to understand of anything what you invest. If your risk appetite is not there much, you should be investing first in debt markets. If you've got slightly more risk appetite, you should invest through the mutual funds. If you got further more risk appetite and you got better understanding than the average fund manager has got, then you should also manage through direct stocks. And don't go by the whatever the influencers are saying on social media if you don't have any understanding about that subject. So what happens is we analyze so many things when we want to buy a house. We do n number of analysis when we want to even when we want to go and even like say अपने बच्चों के लिए हम ट्यूशन क्लासेस एलोकेट करते हैं। पैसा पैसा तो एलोकेट नहीं करते, हम मास्टर ढूंढते हैं हम लोग, या कोई भी चीज हम खरीदने के पहले 10 जगह ढूंढते हैं, समझते हैं, उसके बाद में खरीदते हैं। बट यहाँ जब स्टॉक मार्केट में खरीदने की बात आती है ना, दो लोगों ने, आपके फ्रेंड ने बोला, दो आपको बोला कि हाँ वो
Correct.
स्टॉक मार्केट में ज्यादा जानता है आपसे, आप उसके एक बोलने पे आप 5 लाख 10 लाख 20 लाख लगा देते हैं
Correct.
विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द रिस्क विच कैन कैरी। और 10 लाख 20 लाख जब जब लगाते हैं उस पे, आपका रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशन रहता है कि यार ये तो 2 गुना हो जाएगा 6 महीने में। आपके मालूम है कि 2 गुना होने के पहले वो 30% नीचे भी आ सकता है।
Correct.
और
Correct.
जिसके बेसिस पे आपने लगाया है उसके लिए हो सकता है कि वो जो बंदे के सुन के आपने लगाया है उसके पास हो सकता है कि वो उसके पोर्टफोलियो का 2% होगा, लेकिन आपके
Correct.
लिए वो पोर्टफोलियो का 50% हो जाता है। तो ये जब 30% स्टॉक नीचे गिरता है तो आपका पोर्टफोलियो 15% वैसे डाउन हो जाता है। तब आप बैठ के ऊपर नीचे होते हैं, तब आपको वोलेटिलिटी लगती है। मार्केट में वोलेटिलिटी तब लगती है क्योंकि आपका जो बोलते हैं ना, हम माल गले तक भर लेते हैं, तब आपको वोलेटिलिटी लगती है, क्योंकि आपके
Correct.
ब्रोकर्स के मार्जिन कॉल्स आते हैं, और मार्जिन कॉल्स होते हैं तो आपके स्टॉक्स की सेलिंग होती है। तो मार्केट में वोलेटिलिटी इज द फंक्शन ऑफ द व्हाट return, what is the risk expectation, what you got. So how to manage that volatility? When you say na, I'll always say the maintain the maintain managing volatility means managing risk. Managing risk is
Correct.
by controlled positions in the market. So when you allocate a capital, let's assume 10 lakh rupees to that, and you know that 2 lakh rupees is my stop loss to that, I get out whatever happens, and my return expectation is, let's assume 40%, risk is 20%, you should be comfortable with 20%. बट आपका रिस्क एक्सपेक्टेशन 2 लाख भी एब्सोलूट है, और आपने बिकॉज ऑफ स्टॉक फ्यूचर आपने 40 लाख की पोजीशन लेके रखी हुई है, तो 5% विल टेक अवे 2 लाख रुपीज।
करेक्ट, करेक्ट।
लेकिन आपके पास है ही 10 लाख रुपए, आप लेते हो 40 लाख की पोजीशन लेते हो, 2 लाख का रिस्क लेते हो, लेकिन पोजीशन आपकी 40 लाख की है, तो आप 5% में आउट हो जाएंगे। सो
करेक्ट,
ऑलवेज द रिस्क इज द फंक्शन, वोलेटिलिटी इज अ फंक्शन ऑफ द, वोलेटिलिटी मींस इज द स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन जो अंग्रेजी में बोलते हैं उसको।
करेक्ट,
So
करेक्ट,
please write down your behavior. I always keep on telling a lot of people in the market, who are the first time investors or the new investors, even the evolved investors, nobody writes their risk profile कि मैं 2 लाख रुपए से ज्यादा लॉस नहीं ले सकता, मैं 4 लाख रुपए का रिटर्न एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा हूँ, 2 लाख का रिस्क लूंगा। तो ये क्या है ना कि जो आप लिखोगे नहीं ना, जब तक तब तक समझ में नहीं आएगा। तो इसलिए मार्केट में 2% का मूवमेंट, 1% का मूवमेंट आपको वोलेटाइल लगता है।
करेक्ट,
Market not fallen by 5% today. It's fallen by only 0.3% index. Maybe your stock must have fallen by 5%. तभी आपको volatile लग रहा है. Last 1 year में markets have been sideways, but still mid caps have outperformed. Not outperformed, I'll say. From last October when the markets got peaked out, October to October flat returns were there. Index came down in the March, and March के बाद वापस index में हमने देखा almost 10-12% return है. So best thing is to systematically invest so that you're not worried about that. Don't over leverage. That kills your overall return expectation. क्या होगा, आप मार्केट से आउट हो जाएगा, मार्केट में रिटर्न का पीरियड आएगा ना, तब मार्केट में एलोकेट ही नहीं कर
करेक्ट,
पाओगे। सो
करेक्ट,
लिवरेज,
करेक्ट,
दैट मीन्स आप हाउस खरीदते हो तो क्या होता है, हाउस खरीदते हो तो आपको 5 टाइम का लिवरेज मिलता है। आपको बैंक बोलता है 20% आप अपना लगाओ या 30% अपना लगाओ, 70% हम फंडिंग करेंगे। और हाउस में रोज का मार्क टू मार्केट नहीं होता है। स्टॉक मार्केट में तो दिन में आप एवरी सेकंड में मार्क टू मार्केट करते हो। तो
करेक्ट,
प्लीज
करेक्ट,
प्लीज मैनेज योर रिस्क while your question remains on the volatility. Volatility is nothing but the standard deviation,
करेक्ट।
which is the risk management.
सुनील जी, बहुत परफेक्ट चीज आपने बताई। इसमें बस वही पॉइंट है जो वापस हाईलाइट करना चाहेंगे। इवन आशिका, वी बिलीव दिस दैट इफ यू वांट टू गो फास्ट, यू मे गो अलोन, बट इफ यू वांट टू गो फार, ऑफ कोर्स आशिका इज विथ यू टू इंश्योर दैट यू गो फार। सो आपने जो 2 लाख के सामने 4 लाख, 4 लाख के सामने 2 लाख का रिस्क के बारे में बात किया, दिस इज एग्जैक्टली दैट। थिंक ऑफ गोइंग फार। सी CAGR रिटर्न्स निकालना ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है रादर देन एक ही 6 महीने में डबल स्टॉक करना। क्या क्या आपका पोर्टफोलियो नेक्स्ट 10 इयर्स के लिए कंसिस्टेंटली 12-13% CAGR रिटर्न्स निकाल सकता है? आई थिंक दैट शुड बी द मोर अप्रोप्रिएट थिंग टू थिंक अबाउट रादर देन क्या जस्ट ये स्टॉक डबल होने वाला है। नहीं, वेरी वेल सेड सर। आपने ऑलरेडी रिस्क को वॉलेटिलिटी के साथ कंपेयर करके नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन भी कर दिया है। मीनवाइल आई जस्ट वांट टू टेल ऑडियंस, किसी को भी अगर सुनील सर से कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है तो प्लीज चैट बॉक्स में लिखिए। विद इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ टाइम मैं सुनील सर से वो क्वेश्चन जरूर लूंगा। मेरे पास ऑलरेडी सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैं, सो वो मैं कंटिन्यू रखूंगा। बट अगर किसी को भी सुनील सर से कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है, प्लीज चैट बॉक्स में डाल दीजिए। आई डेफिनेटली ट्राई टू एकोमोडेट इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ टाइम। सुनील सर, नेक्स्ट थोड़े से हमारे न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, जो शायद कॉलेज पास आउट हैं, जो जस्ट अपने एजुकेशन से बाहर आए हैं। यू वेरी वेल सेड सर। आपके एज में, थोड़े बहुत छोटा मोटा मेरे एज में, हमें शायद इन्वेस्टमेंट करने के लिए शायद इतने पॉकेट मनी नहीं थे, या इतना फ्रीडम अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं थी, या इतनी लिटरेसी नहीं थी कि कब कहाँ पे कैसे इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए। अब बिकॉज फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी इतनी इजीली अवेलेबल है, इतना इजीली ये वेबिनार सारे हो सकते हैं, लोगों से बात कर सकते हैं, तो न्यू इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए आपका क्या एक सुझाव रहेगा? हाउ डू दे स्टार्ट, वेयर डू दे स्टार्ट एंड हाउ डू दे स्टार्ट सर?
So very importantly, um, so for the new investors, typically what I say is, like, say, education is so important about any kind of a stuff what they do. Uh, if one is, like, say, you want to make a stock market as your career, or you want to use that as only platform for uh, investing and make a returns on your kind of a savings what you want to do. And typically when you are young, you got the maximum risk appetite, because अगर आप खोएंगे तो आपके पास long journey है to understand and come back in that case. But very importantly, when I began my journey, fortunately I've been in capital markets for a very long time. Though from my education I learned bit about the market and all, but उसमें markets इतने बड़े थे ही नहीं, market में opportunities ही नहीं थी इतनी। लेकिन आज के दिन में जो amount of education which can happen through online medium, some might be paid courses, some might be unpaid courses. Within stock market also, there are multiple lines of business which are there currently. So within the stock market also, since there are multiple lines of business which they can learn, uh, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ एनसीएफएम कोर्सेज होते हैं एक्चुअली. If somebody wants to really understand how the stock markets function, how the investments के लिए हम लोग को क्या क्या पैरामीटर्स देखने चाहिए, अगर हमको म्यूचुअल फंड के थ्रू इन्वेस्ट करना है तो हमारे को क्या क्या पैरामीटर्स एनालाइज करना चाहिए. एंड नाउ these days lot of automatic, well, also in our days we used to call them a robo advisory, which is now a AI generated advisory which is happening currently. That's something you have to understand and start learning from that. But before that, let's assume you want to understand investment through the mutual funds. Please try to study through the exams. मेरा बिलीफ,
करेक्ट
एक स्ट्रॉन्ग बिलीफ है कि अब आदमी अगर एग्जाम देता है ना तो एग्जाम के लिए पढ़ता है. अब पढ़ के
करेक्ट
देता है,
करेक्ट
पढ़ के मजबूरी में पढ़ता है. नहीं तो आप जनरली किसी को बोलोगे कि यार मुझे पढ़ के इन्वेस्ट करना है ना, तो आधे लोग तो पीछे हाथ खड़ा करते हैं. आप मेरे को बता दो कौन से म्यूचुअल फंड में डालना है, आप मुझे बता दो कौन से स्टॉक में डालना है, आप मुझे बता दो कि मैं डालूंगा तो कितना पैसा बनेगा. क्योंकि अपने यहाँ पे क्या है कि बोलते हैं ना, मुफ्त की एडवाइस होती है ना, मुफ्त की एडवाइस के लोगों को आदत लग जाती है. एंड मुफ्त की एडवाइस में जो उसने एडवाइस दी है वो तो अपना हो सकता है स्टॉप लॉस लेके निकल जाएगा, या तो उसके लिए वो 1% ऑफ पोर्टफोलियो होगा. लेकिन जिसने आपसे एडवाइस ली है हो सकता है वो ना घर बार बेच के भी लगा देगा. So
करेक्ट
I am trying to make it very aware to you because since you guys are young guys, the question which is asked by the student at this stage, please read. स्टॉक मार्केट में एक चीज पक्की बात है, इन्वेस्टमेंट वर्ल्ड में एक चीज पक्की है, फाइनेंस वर्ल्ड में एक पक्की चीज है, विदाउट हार्ड वर्क यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू मेक मनी. एंड मनी मेकिंग इज
करेक्ट
नॉट दैट इजी. इफ समबडी सेज दैट कि यार मैंने 1 रुपए लगा के कहते 100 रुपए बना लिए, तो वो आपको बेवकूफ बना रहा है. प्लीज डोंट गो एट गेट लोड बाय दैट. वर्क हार्ड. मैंने आपको रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशन बताई हुई है मार्केट में, 14-15% रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशन. उससे ज्यादा आप रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशन कर रहे हैं तो आप स्पेकुलेट कर रहे हैं. अगर आपको बेसिक सिंपल रिटर्न बनाना है तो आपने शायद देखा होगा कि गोल्ड के रिटर्न भी अभी 15% के आसपास आ गए हैं, सीएजीआर फॉर सो मेनी इयर्स. सो एवरी
करेक्ट
asset class has got a cycle. It's not only the stock market. Each asset class has cycle, and stock market is a asset class. कभी आपका
करेक्ट
गोल्ड चलेगा, कभी आपका स्टॉक मार्केट चलेगा, तो कभी इंटरेस्ट रेट मार्केट में चलेगा पैसा, और कभी रियल एस्टेट चलेगा. सो दीज आर 4 asset classes what we get into that. Crypto is not something allowed in India officially, so I will not comment on that as asset class.
राइट
So my
राइट
single line suggestion is read, learn, and then implement. Don't go by general advice at that age. अगर आपको आदत पड़ जाएगी ना शुरू से एडवाइस लेने की, फ्री की एडवाइस, तो आपकी जिंदगी ऐसी चलेगी. देन यू विल कीप ऑन लुकिंग फॉर मल्टीपल एडवाइसेस.
करेक्ट करेक्ट वेरी वेल सेड वेरी वेल सेड सर. सर आपने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात बताई एआई के बारे में. सर आपका कोई थॉट प्रोसेस व्हाट विल बी द फ्यूचर ऑफ एआई इन ब्रोकिंग इंडस्ट्री या फॉर इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए, वो हाउ डू दे यूज दिस टूल?
So the interesting part has been I've been pretty closely monitoring that, and my background has been on the algorithmic trading, and because I'm strong believer of the behavior of the individuals and behavior of investing. Uh, I strongly believe, why I strongly believe is because behavior is something which actually remains with the person. In their sense, some people are so dependent on somebody else for advice, they'll never be able to take a decision. एंड बोलेगा नहीं ये मेरा फ्रेंड है, वो यहाँ पे काम करता है, वो इतना सीनियर है, वो रिसर्च एनालिस्ट है, तो मैं उसके उसके बिलीफ पे जाऊंगा. लेकिन आपको कन्विक्शन कब आता है? कन्विक्शन कब आता है? जब आपका खुद का कॉन्फिडेंस होगा. आप बोलते हैं ना, मेरे पास 10 लाख रुपीज इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए है, मैं 2 लाख रुपए इस स्टॉक पे लगाऊंगा, या ये म्यूचुअल फंड में लगाऊंगा, या ईटीएफ में लगाऊंगा, प्रोवाइडेड यू आर कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट दैट. समबडी एल्स विल टेल, तो आप 2 लाख की जगह हो सकता है 50,000 ही लगाओगे आप. So that is a behavior of individual. So while I was in my career earlier, like say during the trading world and all stuff, one thing we built up a algorithmic trading system which was purely based on the some logics. And logic can be based on multiple parameters, can be based on fundamental parameters. It can be based on the quantitative parameters, which can be the technical chartist parameter, but those are quantified, not looking at the chart and all that. Why I'm giving the background to that is coming back to the AI. So what has happened is AI is nothing but programming your belief in some of quantitative numbers, and you keep on reinforcing that. So जो आपका जो इंटेलिजेंस है गेटिंग आर्टिफिशियल, इज कमिंग आउट ऑफ योर माइंड and going into that computer system level program which we used to call algorithm in the past. So the use case scenario of AI in stock market is very very high because behavior is getting out of your mind. Your behavior is inconsistent many periods of time. आप दिन में सीएनबीसी देखोगे तो उसमें एक चीज आती है, अगर आप एनडीटीवी प्रॉफिट देखोगे उसमें दूसरी चीज आती है, अगर आप ईटी नाउ देखोगे तो तीसरी चीज आती है. इंग्लिश चैनल
करेक्ट।
में देखोगे चौथी चीज आती है, हिंदी में देखो तो पांचवी चीज आती है। एंड आप
जी।
छठवा 80 टाइम्स पढ़ोगे, छठवीं चीज लिखी रहेगी। आप इतने ज्यादा कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे कि आपको करना क्या है। एंड उसका ट्विटर में देखो तो हर टाइप के व्यूज रहेंगे बेस्ड ऑन द पोजिशंस व्हाट द पीपल कैरी। To get away from this kind of confusion in the market and with so much of news flow and stuff, you have to build some case scenario and build a model. A model can
करेक्ट।
be this, मैंने आपको बताया अभी कि ये जीडीपी ग्रोथ ऐसा ऐसा होगा। ये कंपनी का पैरामीटर्स देखोगे जाके, फंडामेंटल फैक्टर्स देखोगे, द कंपनी हैज बीन ग्रोइंग एट पैट एट सो एंड सो ग्रोथ, EBITDA margin has been growing at so and so growth, sales have been growing at so and so growth. But if you program that numbers every time, whenever the results come out, you don't have to apply your mind. They will come and build a model onto that. That is nothing but artificial intelligence. And that model you have built on certain parameters, you're building out your intelligence into the artificial onto the Excel sheet, which gets programmed. That's artificial intelligence. So the interesting part is now a lot of research is getting replaced by the artificial intelligence. You don't need to really write that theoretical reports onto that. The signal
करेक्ट।
generation is being done by the artificial intelligence and coming out with your buying or selling signal. And also on your portfolio analysis report, if you pass through that kind of a your LLM model, what you built up, and artificial intelligence model built up, that comes out with a full report of your analysis of your portfolio based on all the data parameters and all that. So use case scenario of artificial intelligence in the investing world is very, very high, and it's being already being done by a lot of firms now, and they are calling this agents. So these agents are being built up for the different segment of the ecosystem in the capital markets right now. So it's very, very highly usable model, which a lot of broking firms are now building around on the artificial intelligence.
सो वेरी वेल अगेन सेड सर। आपने जैसे बताया आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के ऊपर ही अगर मेरे को फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन करना हो, एल्गोरिदम ट्रेडिंग आई थिंक इंडिया में काफी लोग करते हैं। रिटेल के लिए अभी सेबी ने भी अलाउ करना स्टार्ट किया है। आई थिंक फॉरेन कंट्रीज में ऑलरेडी ये बहुत एक्सटेंसिव लेवल पे होता है।
Yeah.
सर आप फॉरेन बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली ट्रैवल करते हैं। सर हाउ पीपल आउटसाइड इंडिया इज लुकिंग इंडियन मार्केट्स? सो आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ द व्यू, I'm just talking in terms of the regulatory change which is happening. So एक जनरल एफपीआई क्लाइंट का क्या नजरिया है इंडिया को लेते हुए? If you can just share some lights on that.
Yeah, so first I'll answer your algorithmic trading question and then link it to the FPI because these are two separate set of opinions which are important. So currently FPI at this stage, algorithmic trading to start with, algorithmic trading is already a much more established in India, equivalent to the what is happening globally. All the global firms which are trading in the global markets have already come to India to trade on the Indian markets. You name the global best global firm are now the members of the Indian exchanges, including BSE and NSE both. Why they are coming to India? Very important. Talent pool is very good in India. You find a lot of IITians and high-end graduates which are coming out of India, doing a lot of statistical, mathematical, and the programming skills which are there in India. And also for trading cash equities, they have to be present locally in India. The opportunity size of Indian markets is increasing by leaps and bounds. I talked about so many retail investors coming onto the Indian markets every day. That means the market size is becoming larger and larger. Definitely, the options market has been large in India. That also attracted a lot of global investors to global trading firms to come to India. And the outreach program, which is being done by the regulators and the exchanges to attract all these foreign portfolio investors by making the ease of accessing the Indian markets is very, very strong. So earlier, like say, the regulations which were earlier posted onto one exchange, regulations were posted on another exchange, clearing corporations were posting their own regulations, SEBI had their own regulations. What SEBI has taken effort at this stage is they brought in all the exchanges together, all the clearing corporation and custodian firms together, and have formed a common unified portal for them so that they can easily get all the regulations in one place and also help them to get the access to Indian market faster. Every day, we keep on getting so many representations from all the global foreign portfolio investors. Either they come in groups, either they come in individuals. Either they come through the booking firms, they want to come and understand the kind of regulation which are there in India, and so much of capital is getting allocated through the lot of passive funds in India. That's why
Correct.
the category MSCI India is a separate category now within the fund structure, within the emerging market index also. Uh, that MSCI weightage also has increased for the Indian markets. So there's definitely a lot of focus from the global investors to India.
Correct, correct. So got it, sir. Got it. In the interest of time, I have not even asked 10% of the questions, sir. But before we can, wind up the session, sir, some thoughts on derivatives. यंग इन्वेस्टर्स हैं सर, सारे इन्वेस्टर्स को डेरिवेटिव्स खरीदने में खेलने में बड़ा मजा आता है. इट कम्स विथ हाई रिटर्न हाई रिस्क काइंड ऑफ अ सिचुएशन, एंड रेगुलेटर्स हैव ऑलरेडी शोन लॉट ऑफ चिंता जताई है उस बारे में क्या किस हिसाब से रिटेल पार्टिसिपेंट डेरिवेटिव प्रोडक्ट्स को यूज करते हैं. सो सर, एनी थॉट्स ऑन डेरिवेटिव्स एंड एनी रिकमेंडेशन इन टर्म्स ऑफ कोई सुझाव आप दे सकते हैं नए इन्वेस्टर्स को, क्या डेरिवेटिव से कैसे खेलें या कैसे दूर रहें उससे? वॉट एवर योर थॉट्स सर.
So when I talk about the young investor, or like say the people who want to start their investment journey in the capital markets, my suggestion will be always to come through the cash equity market, and within cash equity also, if you can allocate part of capital to the any kind of fund managers towards the mutual funds and the ETFs, build your capital, small capital, or any kind of new instrument you want to learn and start investing or trading through that. Please learn and understand the risk first. If you don't have understand the risk first, you will not cannot be remaining long term in the game. Read enough books, read enough understanding, do a paper trading. हमारे को याद है हम लोग पहले पेपर ट्रेडिंग करते थे.
करेक्ट, करेक्ट.
अभी क्या हो गया कि मोबाइल में सबको तो इजी हो गया, स्वाइप मारना है और ट्रेड हो जाता है. So that is giving the sometimes wrong signal to the guy कि can I allocate 1,000 rupees to the buying a stock option, buying the option. My suggestion, genuine suggestion is please read the risk, what you can carry onto that. And always, whenever you take the trade or invest that, please make your trader's diary or investment diary. Why you
करेक्ट,
did that trading, why you invested that money into that. If you write down that, that will be very helpful for you. If you lose money, then you understand what mistakes you are making. And read enough books as much as possible related to whatever career you want to make it. विदाउट लर्निंग किसी और के लर्निंग पे ना प्लीज मत करो. खुद के
जी,
लर्निंग
जी.
किसी और के लर्निंग पे करोगे ना तो आप बस में डिपेंडेंट रहोगे, और तब तक
राइट,
आपको कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं आएगा. कॉन्फिडेंस
वेरी
सब
फैंटास्टिक.
लर्न करोगे आप.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू. आपने आपके पर्सपेक्टिव शेयर किए. आई थिंक ऑडियंस ने बहुत सारा चीज सीखा है सर. एटलीस्ट मैंने आशिका के पर्सपेक्टिव से तो बहुत सारी चीजें आज आपसे सीखी हैं. सर, काफी क्वेश्चंस रह गए हैं बट मैं मेरे ऑडियंस को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि आप प्लीज हमें ईमेल कर दें. एंड सुनील सर, मैं आपका टाइम चाहूंगा कि मैं आपको एक ईमेल कर दूं, और जब भी आप अवेलेबल हों सर, आप प्लीज वो
Yeah,
क्वेश्चंस के रिप्लाई कर दें हमारे व्यूअर्स के लिए. सो
sure.
आई वुड once again thank you sir from Ashika. You gave us your important valuable time to us. In interest of time, I want to ensure that आपने 5 बजे तक का समय दिया था, उसी समय पे हम इसे क्लोज करें. So thank you sir for your insightful journey which you have taken us. We'll be thankful for your important time. And thank you audience for such a lovely questions, for being such so patient. And at Ashika we have started this series of sessions. I think the next session is already planned on 12th of December. सो जैसे आज आपने ओवर विमिंग कंट्रीब्यूशन दिया है, आई रिक्वेस्ट नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए भी आइएगा. एंड सुनील सर से हम वापस महीने 2 महीने बाद जब सर का टाइम मिलेगा तो हम वापस सुनील सर को इनवाइट करेंगे हमारे सेशन के लिए. एंड और ज्यादा उनसे चीजें समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. सो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप लोग का. हैव अ गुड इवनिंग टू ईच वन ऑफ यू. एंड स्पेशल थैंक्स टू सुनील सर फॉर गिविंग अस सच ए इम्पोर्टेंट टाइम.
Thank you, Rahul, and the Ashika team, and all the best to the listeners and the viewers today. All the best for your learning journey and the investment journey. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर.
Thank you.
Investments in the securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.